Okay, hi everyone. So welcome to HeartWise Leadership, the second episode of HeartWise Leadership. You are hosted by Tricia Livermore, Sarah Slyke, and myself, Teri Swope. Tricia is a heart-centered mindset coach for women. Sarah helps women break through their inner glass ceiling, and I am a heart-led leadership coach and consultant for small to mid-sized businesses. Together, we have over 65 years of leadership experience. Our goal with this program is to inspire and support compassionate, heart-centered leadership. We believe conscious leadership is the key to unleashing power and potential in individuals, organizations, and the world. If you're here, you're part of this vital shift towards more conscious leadership. So let's kick it off. We start just by bringing the full awareness, our full awareness to this space. You know, the topic that we're talking about today is around stress and overwhelm and burnout. And one of the kind of drivers of stress and overwhelm is the constant chatter that's going on in our mind. So let's just take a moment and bring our full awareness to this space, to these few minutes that we have with each other. Whatever you were doing prior to this coming to this space, just maybe set that aside. Set it on a shelf. It'll be there waiting for you in a half an hour when we're done here. And see if you can just bring your full awareness to yourself, your body, whether you're sitting, your feet are on the floor. Maybe take a few intentional deep breaths just to bring yourself fully to this space and this time that we have together. Okay, so we are inspired, I think is the right word to talk about this topic today. And I think we're so inspired because it happened very organically. Last week, we have planning sessions on a weekly basis to talk about this time together and this HeartWise leadership and what it means to us and what comes up for us and what we want to talk about. And something very clearly came up for us. It was very organic. And it came from some personal experiences that we were having, you know, particularly myself and Tricia. And it was around stress and overwhelm and burnout, which, as we all know, are very hot topics right now in the world, in the workplace. Stress has been a problem in the workplace and in the world for a very long time. And so we thought this is a really good time to talk about this because it feels very relevant for us. And we know that if we're experiencing it, we know that many people are experiencing it. And if we're experiencing it, part of what we want to do is share authentically here what our experience is, not only personally with stress and overwhelm, but our experience with tools that can help with it as well. So let's just kick it off here. Let's talk about what do stress and overwhelm feel like for you? Because it's not always obvious. So what do you do when you're in stress or overwhelm? How does it feel? Where does it show up in your body? Tricia, do you want to speak to that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was really interesting. Going back to our planning session, we had a completely separate topic altogether. And when we realized the overwhelm and stress that we were all experiencing at different aspects in our lives, that this is really super relevant. So what I was sharing, when I get into overwhelm, I get into like a full body shutdown. I get to this place where my inner critic starts ruminating and looping, and that kind of negative voice sort of takes over, and I lose all of my energy. And generally, I want to be able to come out of that fairly quickly, but in these particular circumstances I had, my son had just graduated high school. I had a bunch of family coming in that I hadn't seen in a really long time, a very long time. I've been estranged from my mother, and she was coming, and it was going to be the first time I was going to talk to her at my son's graduation. So there was just a lot of emotions. It went beautifully. It went wonderful. It was a great connection. But by the time everybody left, I was absolutely exhausted, completely and totally exhausted. And first I felt bad. I felt, a lot of guilt. Like I'm just, why am I so tired? And once I really leaned into the acceptance of that, which took probably a good week, before I had, a really good day of just crying and spending time for myself. It takes however long it takes, right? And so to really be able to permit ourselves to feel all of the emotions, grief. I was also grieving the fact that my life is going to be completely and absolutely different. And going forward with my son graduating, he's going to be going off to college. So like all of these thoughts and feelings and emotions were just like swarming. And my body was like, no, you're done. So it took a lot of awareness around my feelings, my emotions, what I needed to do for myself. And, I was able to get support from my community, from my friends, from colleagues. So it can sort of take you out sometimes, and that's okay. We're all human in that. So I think that's the reason why this conversation is so relevant, and being able to share that with others.
The that's okay part, I think, is where a lot of us need help, right? Recognizing it is one thing, accepting that it's okay and it's a natural part of the human experience is definitely there. I know you can talk very eloquently about that, but how about you, Sarah? What does it look like for you?
Yeah, I think for me, it starts to show up. The feeling of overwhelm is like I have so much to do, and it just starts to seem more difficult. Like calling the bank, for example, is something that I've had on my to-do list, but I don't really want to. Well, when I'm not overwhelmed, I can call. It's maybe I don't want to do it, but I can do it. But the more I get into a state of overwhelm, the harder things become. And it just seems like what was a molehill is now a mountain. And then I'll feel more emotional. I know, Tricia, you commented about having a day to cry. It's like everything just gets pent up, and it just takes like a pinprick for everything to come out. At some points in my life, I've gotten really crabby at those points. At other times, I've gotten really just like teary and emotional feeling. And so I know that I'm just getting to this point when it just feels like the insides are getting more and more full, and I can't hold it all. And the other thing that I think happens is I don't have the right filter. And what I mean is I have, all these things that I feel that I need to do. And, there's a reality of things that we need to do, but I'm not able to filter out the most important thing, or filter out like that actually, I can let that go. And I'll give another example of something simple, but I'm at a conference today, and part of my preparation, I was going to make a video to put on the website that I was going to use. And I just couldn't get that website done with the overwhelm of the other things that I had going on. And so I had to just make the call to take that video holder off the website and just let it go. And that seems like not a very major decision, but when I'm in overwhelm, everything seems important, and I have to do it all, and I have to, so that idea of being able to filter and let go is something that I really like, I have to stop and pause and notice I'm in overwhelm, notice, okay, how bad is it going to be if I don't get X done or Y done? And then really start to concentrate on what's most critical.
Yeah. We're talking a lot about overwhelm, and I love what Earl commented here. He said it just flattens him. He said it just flattens me. I usually end up sick, which a lot of times we don't put those two together, right? We don't put physical illness together with stress. and overwhelm. But I just did a LinkedIn post on this. All of the research supports the fact that they are absolutely linked. I mean, very, very linked. I would say for me, stress shows up as in overwhelm, particularly. I haven't dealt with burnout in probably a decade. As I've sort of, built up some inner tools to, better regulate my emotions, which seem to all fly out the window here recently, which is part of the reason that we're talking about this. But burnout, I haven't had. Stress and overwhelm, those show up for me in shutdown, but I wouldn't say full body shutdown. I would say it's emotional shutdown. So I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to articulate my emotions. I don't even want to feel my emotions, right? But it's still in there, and it's still informing how I show up in the world. I agree, Sarah, the lack of a filter, I would say that impacts me as well, but it's really more about what comes out of my mouth, because I seem not to be able to control it, especially here recently, just with some very stressful dynamics that have been going on in one area of my life. And one of the things that we talked about last week that just really brought this topic, made it so relevant, is, Sarah, you talked me through what I didn't realize was me shaming myself, because some of the things that I said were, I know better than this. I know better than to react like this. I, have, like, for heaven's sake, I train leaders on how to emotionally regulate and how to be self-aware and, emotional intelligence. And here I am, like, not illustrating any of that. And really beating myself up about that. And as I've come to find out, there are some underlying reasons that have to do with nerve damage that are associated with the chemo that have to do with my emotional dysregulation recently. But my shaming myself, which I think we all do, it's part of the human condition, was making it so much worse. And it was also keeping me stuck in it. So, Sarah, I'd love it if you talk about, just kind of share what you shared with me, because it was so powerful. And I think it's a message that more people need to hear. One, because they need to be aware of it, because I wasn't even aware that this mental narrative that I had going on in my head was self-shaming. And I know what self-shaming is, but, until you kind of said what you said, it helped me understand it a bit more.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I can do it justice in the same way. But I think what we do is we just don't allow ourselves to have the feelings that are actually there. And I found it kind of, we're not supposed to feel some of these negative feelings, especially if we're, I'm gonna put my air quotes up here, enlightened, like we're not supposed to feel these things, and yet there they are. And so we need to have a good reason, we think, for having these feelings. And I was chuckling as you were asking me to explain it, how you were kind of giving us a good reason for why you felt dysregulated. You don't need to have a reason, emotions come up and emotions go. And we just don't allow space for that. And what happens, when we're shaming ourselves, as you said, I shouldn't feel that way. I should get over this. I should, whatever, some way not be feeling what I'm actually feeling. And there's things like jealousy. I shouldn't be jealous, but I am. Or anger. I'm angry at this person. I know they're trying to be nice, but I'm still angry. Or different ways that we kind of try to talk ourselves out of it. But what ends up happening is we just suppress. We suppress those feelings. And we think that we're kind of, working our way through it. But in reality, it's just not given a space to rise up and move out. And that's the biggest thing that I think is hard for our culture to accept, that when we acknowledge the real feeling, it gives it a space and an outlet to just flow out again. It doesn't stay and live within us. So, for example, I know a while back somebody had some professional success and I felt jealous. And I mean, I'm still happy for them. I should be happy for them. That's the thing. But I was happy for them, but also I wasn't having that same success and I felt jealous. And, that doesn't feel great. But then when I had a conversation, fortunately, this actually happened on a day where I was meeting with a therapist. So she kind of guided me through this. But I had a conversation and said, yeah, you know what? I feel jealous. And a favorite phrase of mine is, who wouldn't feel jealous in a situation where someone's having success that you wish you had? Who wouldn't feel, frustrated in the situation? It just kind of gives some validation to it. You can validate yourself, and that rises up and moves on. You don't have to live with that feeling. Acknowledging the feeling doesn't make it stay. Acknowledging the feeling helps it move along.
I love that. I love what Tricia says too about we should all over ourselves all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. And, in that shoulding, I think the thing that we have to really provide for ourselves is a lot of grace and compassion. When we give ourselves compassion to permit ourselves to do something different, and there's so many comments. Deanna talks about stress being an energy sucker, and really knowing, like, when your energy is being sucked out of you, understanding what that feels like and having a lot of extra compassion for yourself. Carlos talks about, when I'm overwhelmed, I have a hard time breathing and I can't focus. So I switch to making breathing a priority one. That is a beautiful practice, Carlos. And that's probably one we would definitely suggest in our conversation today is breathing, really having a slower, deeper breath, focusing really in your heart space, having some appreciation or gratitude while you're doing that breathing is so important for you to get back into a regulated nervous system. And then he also says, one thing is to know what to do, is another thing is being able to do it, Teri. It's a work in progress, right? Like, we can know all of these things. We're all coaches. We all have all these different skills, and we have to practice them. It's really a matter of practice. And Jamie says, yes, emotional shutdown is me too, and I mask it. And, we're here to say, let's not mask it. Let's unmask it together, because in community and support of each other, we can unmask these feelings and find people in community and your colleagues or loved ones that can really support you when you're feeling these lower energies, like the three of us did last week. We were like, two of us were in really low energy, and we were able to support one another. Mm-hmm. And Earl says, we don't need a reason or an excuse to be and feel human. Yes, right? Mm-hmm. Like, society has said for so long that you can't share your feelings, you can't share your emotions. And I think there's a time and place when it's absolutely appropriate to share, your stress and overwhelm. I'm feeling stress. And Carlos even says this: when overwhelmed or stressed at work, I prioritize how I'm showing up to my team to ensure I'm not bleeding over them with my pain. That's powerful. That's powerful self-awareness. So having that self-awareness, noticing when your emotions are activated, knowing how your mood might be impacting others or how their mood might be impacting on you, and really understanding how your emotions impact your performance and being thoughtful about it. Like, taking time away if you need to take a time away, for however much time you need, like putting yourself, with the oxygen mask first is really important in order to regulate. And then Earl says, for the grace and compassion to happen, we also need the awareness. Yes, exactly, right? And to what Sarah said, we need to be really honest with ourselves to meet ourselves where we are at. Yeah, and the ability to just speak our truth, right? If we're feeling low, at work, like, it's okay to share that. Like, yeah, I'm feeling kind of down today. I might not be at my best, but I'm going to do the best that I can in this moment. And really modeling that for others is just such a beautiful way to show a lot of grace for ourselves and compassion, and then sharing that with others when they're in low energy as well.
I love that, modeling it for others too. I mean, I think that's so important. Most of our culture doesn't really accept difficult feelings. How many times are children told, or even adults told, they feel something bad? Oh, don't feel that way. Oh, it's not that bad. Oh, it'll get better. Well, it's fine. Like it's sort of like not allowing someone to feel the way they feel, or this idea of toxic positivity. You know what? There's a silver lining here in every single thing, and there might be, but I sure need a day to feel the dark side of that cloud too. So this opportunity to model what it's like to have difficult feelings and just allow them to move on. It's so rare, and I think it's really valuable.
Yeah, it is rare. And I think it's part of the reason that we're having this discussion. I am definitely one of those people that the glass is always not half full. The glass is brimming over, right? It's spilling over. There's so much positivity going on. And I think what that has served to do, I mean, clearly there is value in thinking positively, but it also puts me in a place of judging myself when I'm not thinking positively, or judging my emotions, which, to your point, Sarah, you both have made this point. We are conditioned from a very young age to not acknowledge and not give space to hard emotions. We're conditioned at a very young age to keep things bottled up. As Jamie said, mask it. Just deal with it, okay? Just don't spill it out, to the world. Like, keep it all tucked in, because that's what we do, especially at work. So I think giving ourselves grace is, I hear that a lot. I say it a lot, right? Giving ourselves compassion and grace, absolutely. But it is not modeled in our social circles. It's not modeled in society. I would say, unless you have the benefit of just being around people who've done a lot of inner work and, are very self-aware. But really, I was just reading some statistics on this. I mean, like, less than 3% of the population, and by the way, I would include myself in the 97%, but less than 3% are like actively, constantly aware of what they're feeling, what they're thinking. Actually, I think it was like less than 1%. But it's part of the human experience, right? The conditioning is part of the human experience. The healing work is part of the human experience. Dealing with the stress and overwhelm, accepting it, I should say, is not supposed to be part of the human experience. That's the socialized part. This is what I believe, is that we've been socialized to believe that, it's supposed to be, that's just life, or that's just work. It's supposed to be stressful. It's supposed to be overwhelming. Like, burnout is just part of the process. And one of the key takeaways, because I think you all have dropped such pearls of wisdom, but one of the key takeaways that I would really love for everyone to understand is that how we experience every aspect of our life is fully within our control, that nothing is ever happening to us, it's happening for us. And we are so empowered to take control, to take the reins and control how we are experiencing our lives, including the hard emotions, including all of the growth, both the shiny, pretty parts and the parts that aren't so shiny and pretty. We're all empowered to do that. So let's talk a little bit. We already have to some degree, but I really want to make sure that we leave the people that are watching and people that may watch this recording later on with just a couple of tools. Obviously, this is bigger work. Managing stress and being, in control of our emotions and our thoughts and, how we're experiencing our lives is big work. But there are a few, tools that I want to make sure we leave people with. So anybody want to pick that up?
Yeah, I think I know Tricia's got some great runs around breathing and such, so I'm going to leave that for her. But I will also say, for some people, getting centered requires a bit of movement. And so I think very oftentimes we have this idea of, sitting in a Zen, peaceful, quiet moment, which has its value, but not for everyone. And some people need to just move. The best way of calming yourself through movement is something that's repetitive, whether that's walking or running if you're a runner, or even just rocking, anything that's just a little bit repetitive and moving, that can be calming for many nervous systems. It doesn't always have to be sitting in a Zen position quiet. There's many nervous systems that's a stressful event right there. So the biggest point I want to make with that is that's a tool. It's not for everyone. And that's wonderful. You take what works for you through some experimentation.
I love that. And meditation is a wonderful tool. I do it. I love it. But it also requires people to sit, quietly for a period of time. And that's hard, especially if you're not used to it. That's hard to do. So, Tricia, I know you and I are both familiar with an on the go tool that we both practice. And so you want to share it? It's just a quick, go for it. I think you're very good at it. You're the one who introduced me to it some time ago. So I'd love it if you share it. We're both trained in this tool and all of the heart math modalities, which we can talk about on another episode. But Tricia, I would love it if you would share this tool. It's because it's so accessible.
Yeah, this is, it's called a quick coherence technique from Heart Math. And I'm going to just walk you through 2 steps. So step 1 is focus your attention in the area of the heart. Imagine your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or chest area, breathing a little slower and deeper than usual. Find an easy rhythm that's comfortable. Step 2, as you continue heart-focused breathing, make a sincere attempt to experience a regenerative feeling, such as appreciation or care for someone or something in your life. And as you do that, it's really about really breathing a little slower, a little deeper, focusing on something appreciative within your heart space. And when you can practice this, even in 60 seconds, it can help to regulate your nervous system. The longer you do it, the better. But it's really important to utilize breath as a way to improve your regulation system, your nervous system, because we get into fight or flight. And that's a whole other topic, like Teri said. But really, it's so important to just slow down in the moment. To bring you back into focus of what it is that you need to do. It helps your executive functioning come back online, so that you can make better decisions in the moment. So that's a really great way if you're in a really high stress or overwhelmed moment, is utilizing that practice. And, we're all human. We all forget to do it. And we have to remember, like, I've got these tools and practices in my toolbox that I can pull out and utilize. So no guilt, no shame. Just practice.
Yeah, it's creating a habit around it. And it's one of those tools that you don't have to be sitting in a lotus position. You could be driving. You don't have to have your eyes closed. It's accessible at any time. It's a matter of where you're placing your thought energy and cultivating those emotions. And it's research backed. It helps with mental clarity, with emotional stability and composure. And it's just quick and easy and very accessible, but it only works if you use it. So yeah. And I think there is lots of information on this online, but I think in the next couple of days, maybe I'll put a quick post out on LinkedIn and maybe YouTube that talks a little bit more about it.
Yeah, I think that'd be great, Teri. I think it's great to be able to share, like you said, the tools in the toolbox. There's not everything is going to work for every situation. So it's great to have a variety of things that you can look to and use at the right time. I was in a situation yesterday that was very uncomfortable, and I ended up just counting backwards. And that was all I could do, but it worked out great for me at that particular moment. So again, another tool in the toolbox. And we'll look forward to sharing more of these as we keep moving forward on our ongoing HeartWise leadership. So for those of you watching or even just watching the recording, we'd love to hear your comments, because we really want to make this about topics that are going to resonate with those of you. So I'd love to hear, number one, what you'd like to see covered and talked about. And number two, any comments you have on this, maybe you want to share a tool that works for yourself or something else. It would just really like to see the engagement that way, and then work to cover those topics. So we're going to be wrapping up today's, but we're planning to do these. We're aiming for every 2 weeks. So hopefully we'll be live with you in a couple of weeks on topics that we've heard from you, and enjoy sharing and making this a place for HeartWise leadership.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks very much for attending. Tricia, Sarah, it is lovely spending time with you. Thank you very much. Take care, everyone.
Bye.